Right, so question 2, closing those, had a shape that looked like an ice cream cone, but they'd broken it down for you by telling you that this was a semicircle and this was a triangle. They told us that this distance, the width of it, was 8 centimetres, and that this height here was 12 centimetres, and we were asked to find the total area and the total perimeter enclosed by the composite shape, which means you're not including the line dividing them. So you're trying to find area and perimeter here. Now I'm going to start to go a little bit quicker with these, so you can pause things and go over it if you're not quite sure. One of the tricks when they stick shapes together like this, whenever you have a circle in a question, you need to know its radius. So, do we know the radius of this semicircle? Well, we know the diameter because it's the same as the width. It's 8 centimetres across. So then we know the radius must be 4. So that's really the only trick in this kind of question. The area involves adding two areas together. First one is the area of my semicircle, which is, what fraction of the circle is it? It's a half. 180 out of 360 if you want to use the formula, by pi by the radius squared. So a half pi r squared. And that gives me, and they said to one decimal place again, let me just double check that, to the nearest centimetre squared. So we'll go to one decimal place while we're working and then round it when we're finished. 0.5 by, use the pi button in your calculator, by 4 squared, and we get 8 pi, which is 25.1 centimetres squared. So that's the first area. I should have left more space before talking about perimeter. The second area is a triangle, so it's half the base by the perpendicular height. And again, we know the base of the triangle, it's 8, so that's a half by 8, and we know the perpendicular height, which is 12. So that's 4 by 12, which gives us 48 centimetres squared, and the total area is those two added together and rounded to one decimal place, which is 73 centimetres squared. So we're adding two shapes. These questions will all be about either adding shapes or removing them. My perimeter then is also in two parts. I've got the perimeter of two sides of my triangle, a little bit of work involved in those, but it must be an isosceles triangle. Can you see why it must be? Because this is directly above the centre here, and my arc as well. So those guys are the same. Once I find one side, I'm going to know what the other side is as well. And I have an arc. Let's find the arc first and then we'll find the sides. Because the arc is really easy. The arc is just half, it's a half circle of 2 pi r. So that's going to be pi r, or when I fill in, pi multiplied by 4. So pi multiplied by 4, and we'll go to one decimal place. We get 12.6 centimetres. And then the triangle, a little bit more difficult. It is an isosceles triangle, which means we can divide it into two equal right-angled triangles. So if I look at this right-angled triangle first, I have 4 and 12, which means I can find the hypotenuse using Pythagoras' theorem. So Pythagoras' theorem tells me that the hypotenuse squared is equal to the other two sides squared and added together. And that's 144 plus 16, which is 160. Square root both sides. The hypotenuse is the square root of 160, which is 4 root 10. But again, we're going to go to one decimal place. So happened to be the same area, 12.6 centimetres squared. And my total area is those two added together. So 12.6 plus 12.6, which is 25.2, but they asked to the nearest centimetre squared, 25 centimetres squared to the nearest whole number. Okay, so the little trick here was to remember that any isosceles I should be so careful. Didn't answer the question asked, wasn't area. Got a little bit distracted there, sorry guys. So my hypotenuse is 12.6. My arc is 12.6. And my other hypotenuse is also 12.6 centimetres. So the perimeter is going to be 12.6 from the arc, plus 12.6 from one side of the triangle, plus 12.6 from the third side of the triangle. And we get 37.8 centimetres, and they wanted it to the nearest whole number, 38 centimetres for the perimeter. That was my fault there, I got distracted by thinking about area. Okay, so that's the second question.